Over the last year, since the release of the Steam Deck, we've seen more and more video games target the Steam Deck specifically and market how their game is compatible on the deck. That is considerably different than anything we've seen on the PC gaming front, at least as long as I've been following PC gaming. Even with really popular, almost ubiquitous cards like the GTX 970 and the RX 580, I never really saw publishers market the fact that their games were optimized for these cards. And really, the Steam Deck is a different beast because it's not just a graphics card, it's the entire machine that is standardized. Anyway, like I said, we've seen big games and small games alike celebrate their compatibility with Valve's handheld. Elden Ring infamously ran smoother on the Steam Deck than on beefier Windows machines. Apex Legends, Ark Survival Evolved, and others made sure to toggle their anti-cheat so that they wouldn't ban Steam Deck users. Cyberpunk made a Steam Deck graphical preset. Many indie games like Shredder's Revenge, Tunic, Cult of the Lamb, and Stray were rightfully eager to market themselves to the Steam Deck audience, and it's possible that a game like Vampire Survivors would not have gotten as big as it did if it weren't for the Steam Deck. This trend has continued and perhaps even accelerated. Just in the last week, there's news of like 4 big games that are either making adjustments for the Steam Deck specifically or otherwise just about to get better for the Steam Deck thanks to the decisions and adjustments that they're making. Let's start with Overwatch, or should I say Overwatch 2. This is a game that already plays well on the Steam Deck. The only problem, of course, has been the BattleNet launcher. You would have to download that launcher in desktop mode, then add it to Steam to be able to play Overwatch in Steam Deck's gaming mode. That's not that bad, to be honest, but it's not quite as nice as having it available for Steam, which it now will be starting on August 10th. Blizzard has announced that they'll be bringing over a selection of games to Steam, and the first of them is going to be Overwatch 2. The timing makes some sense as people have begun to speculate that Overwatch is losing active users, and launching on Steam will be a chance for the player base to be reinvigorated. Interestingly, there's no way to tell how Overwatch is doing in terms of player count because Blizzard does not publicize those numbers, but the move to Steam will mean that we will now be able to see a player count on the Steam side, and surely some people will be comparing that to other games like Team Fortress 2. Still though, this is great news for Steam Deck users specifically, not only because the game will be easier to install, and not only because you will get Steam specific features, but also you will get the shader cache, which should make the entire experience smoother. All that said, this does not mean the death of BattleNet, at least not according to Blizzard. You'll still need a BattleNet account to log in, and they said that they remain committed to continually investing in and supporting BattleNet. But this is one less thing you'll need from that launcher and storefront. Outside of Blizzard, Activision has already stopped depending on their company launcher when they moved Call of Duty and Crash Bandicoot 4 to Steam, but now it seems even Blizzard is making the move, and this is all happening before the close of the Microsoft deal. We saw the Bethesda launcher go away pretty quickly after Microsoft bought Bethesda, so it does make you wonder if BattleNet will one day share the same fate. I'm curious how many of you still use non-Steam launchers and which ones do you use? Let me know in the comments. While I'm still on the subject of non-Steam launchers, I do want to point out the new grossness that Ubisoft is doing with their launcher. I saw this shared by Gaming on Linux on Twitter, and yeah, this is bad. Apparently they are suspending inactive accounts before permanently closing those accounts, leaving you without any access to the games you purchased. Please check your inbox to see if you have gotten any emails like this, because Ubisoft says you can avoid the closure by logging into your account within 30 days of receiving this email. Honestly, overall, this is pretty messed up. I have a few games on Ubisoft Connect, and for the most part, I can just rebuy them on Steam if I need to, but I do also own Drivers San Francisco, which is not available on Steam, and high key, it's pretty tight. So yeah, I logged into Ubisoft Connect just to make sure they don't take away my video games. Honestly, it doesn't make sense for me to lose my purchases simply because I haven't logged in, and it's so anti-consumer, it's ridiculous. This sort of stuff should be illegal. In any case, I really hope they undo this so people don't have to worry about stuff like this. Moving over to happier news and back to games that are targeting the Steam Deck specifically, next is BattleBit Remastered, which once again has already been playing great on the Steam Deck, but it is getting an important update. BattleBit Remastered, of course, is the super popular indie shooter that's been fashioned after the Battlefield series. It currently uses easy anti-cheat, but Steam Deck fans of the game were worried when the developers announced that they wanted to start using Face IT for anti-cheat instead. This swap would make the game unplayable on Steam Deck, but thankfully it looks like we won't have to worry. This was all clarified on the game's Discord server when they confirmed that there will be a new version of Face IT that supports Steam Deck and some popular versions of Linux. They go on to say that BattleBit Remastered will be the first game to use this version of Face IT. So if you were hesitating to pick this game up because of Steam Deck compatibility, don't worry, the dev team has you covered. The next game to celebrate Steam Deck compatibility is Remnant II, but this one has an interesting twist. Remnant 2 is the gorgeous looking and highly anticipated Souls-like coming out tomorrow, and late last week, the EU Twitter account for this game tweeted out that Remnant 2 is Steam Deck verified. One side note is that even though the account tweeted that it's verified, I didn't see that reflected yet on the Steam store as you might usually expect. Interestingly, Windows Central reacted to this with an article titled "Remnant 2 is Steam Deck verified, but I would still wait to play it." They said that even though it's rated verified, there is still some tweaking needed, even going as far as to say they're, quote, starting to question the Steam Deck verification process more and more as of late, end quote. The author of the article, Richard Devine, said that playing at the native 800p resolution just isn't doable at 30 FPS. The tutorial section can go as high as 40 FPS, but when you start the game, the frame rate consistently goes under 30 and settles around 24-25 FPS. Unfortunately, even with FSR set to ultra performance, Remnant 2 never really hits a solid 30 FPS. It could be that there's a day one patch coming for the game, or that shader caches aren't fully baked and that may help a bit, or that there's an incoming Proton update as well, but as of now, Remnant 2 runs on Steam Deck, but it's less than ideal, and it's possible that you may end up disagreeing with the verified rating for this title. Dragon Quest Treasures, on the other hand, is a game that I think most can agree earns its verified badge. This game came out last week on July 14th, but I noticed they had a community post celebrating their verified status, and Valve even tweeted about it on their Steam Deck JP account. I've played this on the Steam Deck via Switch emulation, and it already ran pretty great, so I can't say I'm surprised to see it get verified. It'll be nice to move over to the PC version so that it just uses up less power and I have better battery life on my Steam Deck. Before we go any further with more deck news, I have to tell you about today's sponsor because the deal they're offering really has no downside. Today's video is brought to you by Skillshare. Now listen, making YouTube videos has been extremely hard work, but it's also extremely fulfilling. It's given me a chance to build a second career, and I'm thankful for that. But before starting on this channel, I never really worked on my writing or photography or even editing. I've been learning on the job every step of the way, and that's where Skillshare comes in handy. It can help you learn how to design a career that is the right fit for you. For me, the next step is going to be photography. I want to get much better at having really awesome B-roll in my videos. The nice thing is that I can explore at my pace and start small. Like, look at this beginner's B-roll course I just completed. It was concise and I learned a lot from that. I can even submit a short video to show what I've learned, and that instructor is going to give me feedback. In addition to creative topics, there are topics ranging on all sorts of things, from managing your time to finding the right clients when you're starting a business. So if you're interested, I'm really happy to announce that the first 1,000 people that click my link will get a 1-month free trial of Skillshare. Make sure to click the link below to get started and explore what courses are going to be a good fit for you. Thank you to Skillshare for sponsoring this video. While I'm still on the subject of games that are optimized for the Steam Deck, my friend Emilio introduced me to a game that is kind of a perfect fit for the Steam Deck, but you'll have to bear with me. You're not going to believe me once you hear the title and see the trailer. Take a look. Yeah, so this game is called, yeah, you want those games, right? So here you go. Now let's see you clear them. But I think for the sake of brevity, we can just call it those games. It's modeled after all the ads you've seen for slightly compelling mobile games that never turn out to be the real game, except now they're actually real games and designed well to boot. This game is made by the Japanese studio that remastered Katamari Damacy and Klonoa Fantasy, and I gotta say, it's pretty good. It reminds me of like WarioWare and Rhythm Heaven and Brain Age Training. So some game modes are more fun than others. I really enjoyed Pin Pull and Parking Lot. I saw some reviews saying it's a little pricey for what it is at $10, so maybe wait for a sale, but I can see this game getting a lot of attention on the Steam Deck in the next coming weeks. In other news, it appears that Valve is taking on and suing a group of patent troll shell companies. Valve is claiming that the trolls are asserting patent infringement in bad faith and that they're well known for their bad faith behavior. And further, that despite already coming to a licensing agreement, the trolls are essentially extorting Valve for more money. And so, as sadly as Bradley eloquently put it, Valve is tired of their bull and is now suing. Naturally, the patents themselves are ridiculous and at this point have even become infamous. Patent 221, as it's now referred to, won the Stupid Patent of the Month from the Electronic Frontier Foundation in 2016. And in addition to extorting Valve, this troll has previously sued Disney, WWE, and many others for these patents that it holds without having developed any products of value whatsoever. Here's hoping that Valve's efforts prove to be successful. On the subject of litigation, it appears that Dolphin has abandoned its plans to come to Steam. They issued an in-depth statement on their blog that covers a number of details. First, they clarified the series of events, including how Valve were the ones to reach out to Nintendo initially, and then Valve stating that the Dolphin team will have to work it out with Nintendo before they allow Dolphin up on the storefront. The statement also covered the matter of the Wii Common Key, which Nintendo is alleging is at the crux of circumventing the GameCube and Wii's protections. Basically, the Dolphin team is claiming that this is a major reach on Nintendo's part and that they have a very strong argument that Dolphin is not primarily designed or produced for the purpose of circumventing protection. Finally, they let us know that they don't think Dolphin is in any legal danger, but also that Valve runs the Steam storefront and they have the right to allow or disallow anything they want on said storefront for any reason. As you can imagine, all of this stirred up a whole lot of conversation on the internet, including Reddit. I've mentioned Moon Channel before, which is a YouTube channel run by a lawyer who goes by the name of Mooney, and he's covered this topic before. He ended up making a scathing comment about this on Reddit, claiming that Dolphin likely has no lawyers on the team and nobody reads the footnotes. This is all ironic because Dolphin mentioned early in their statement that they have done their homework and talked to a lawyer. While I have recommended Moon Channel in the past, I'd like to point out that I think his perspective is that of a corporate lawyer. I believe he gives a great perspective from the side of the corporation that would be the plaintiff, but in my humble opinion, he has been dismissive about the legality of emulators and hasn't really given any credence to any argument that emulators would potentially be able to use to defend themselves in court. One thing all parties seem to agree on, however, is that the law isn't entirely settled, but at least for now, this saga appears to be over. In other news, new video of Sony's Project Q has leaked and it's pretty interesting. It still looks kind of ugly, but we did learn a couple of things. First, we learned that the screen is a touchscreen, and we also got good news by learning that it is running Android under the hood. I'm hoping that means there will be a good chance that we'll be able to install homebrew on this, including emulators. That would be pretty fun. One question that remains unanswered, however, is how much storage space this device will have, as that might hamper my homebrew hopes. Especially if there are no ports for SD cards or even USB drives, which there don't appear to be. Honestly, yeah, I'm still not entirely sure who this is for, but I can't help but be curious to see how it actually feels in my hands. The DualSense controller is pretty great, and it would be nice to have a handheld that matches those controls perfectly. Here's hoping it doesn't have stick drift problems. Valve just released a new version of Proton version 8.03. As usual, it contains fixes for different launchers like EA Play, Ubisoft Connect, and Final Fantasy XIV. It also contains fixes for a variety of games like Olympia Rising, Ghost Recon Breakpoint, and Super Bomberman R. Check it out. Likewise, Valve has issued an update for search functionality in Steam Workshop. They said it now does a better job of handling partial string searches and prioritizes the most relevant results based on popularity and user ratings. As usual, it's nice to see quality of life updates like these. A couple big accessory updates. Extreme Rate has new shells up for sale. I saw this up on Steam Deck HQ, and there are 6 new options. You can now get the transparent shell in red, blue, or green, and you can get a no pig shell in gold, pink, or green. That gold shell is a statement to be sure. It looks like you can get an extra 10% off using the code SDHQ, so if you do pick one up, make sure to use that. JSOX has also finally released their RGB products for sale, including an RGB dock and an RGB backplate. There's an 8-port dock for $60 and a 12-port dock for $90, and the backplate is available for $40. There are checkout codes with discounts for each of these in the links below. Let me know in the comments if you plan on picking one of these up. The ROG Ally has a new BIOS update with version 3.2.3. This includes added 30-watt support when you plug in a PD adapter rated for 65 watts or higher. The minimum panel backlight value has been updated from 25 nits to 10 nits, which is great for those of us that want to be able to get it dimmer in low light environments. They also said they've optimized performance of the handheld when it's plugged in and set to performance mode. I haven't given this update a try yet, but this is good news for Ally owners. Revisiting the Nintendo and Dolphin saga real quick, one thing I found interesting was that the Dolphin team tried to stave off any platform wars by saying they, quote, don't think this incident should change anyone's view of either company, end quote. I think that's fair enough, to be honest. Even after all of this, Nintendo is still one of my favorite game companies. Most of that just has to do with the fact that they make really high quality video games. It's strange because this year has been one of the greatest years for games ever, and Nintendo might walk away being the best publisher in a crowded field. I think I figured out what's been the secret to their success, and I talk about it in this video I did over on my new channel, Fan to Games. Check it out. Deck Gang out. Goodbye.